Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of everything North American Developmental League of Legends. Episode 8 coming your way. I'm Grapes, that is Hawk. The NACL regular season has concluded, and all 16 teams are gearing up for the playoffs. They all start this weekend, a huge 16-team double elimination bracket waiting to be filled out before our eyes in the next couple of weeks. And on the other side of things, the NACLQs starting off their second qualifier group stages after the conclusion of OQ number 2. Lot to talk about, lot to unpack. Hawk, how are we doing today on this Tuesday evening?
You know, Grapes, I'm doing good. It's been a chill day. It's actually been a chill start to my week, somehow, but it's about to get crazy because I got spring break coming up in 2 days. I'm leaving on Thursday to go to a basketball tournament, but
Hell yeah.
I'm super excited because while all that's happening, like Grape said, there's a lot of good League of Legends to watch. We got OQ2 coming up. We got the playoffs for NACL. I mean, we're getting into crunch time for these teams.
Yeah, it's been a very busy week for me. Got a lot of stuff that I'm working on, some of which you'll see in a couple of days. But overall, just a very, very large amount of League of Legends that we had to consume over these past couple of days, Hawk. It's 80 OQ games again, full super week of NACL. Of course, we didn't watch every single open qualifier game, but we were definitely live for some of them, where we streamed a lot of LiT Esports, and we streamed that native game for round 5 against Winthrop. We'll get to the OQs in a little bit, but speaking of those qualifiers, we will again be live this weekend for coverage of the second NACLQ. We're not entirely sure what the schedule is going to look like yet, but there are going to be basically no Rally Cry official streams for this week. So every single game, all 8 of the first round GSL matches will be either on twitch.tv/saltyrunbackpod, twitch.tv/alkbattery, or twitch.tv/smaxhide. You can figure out, we'll get you the information as soon as possible. But overall, just really excited to get some more streams in, Hawk. We've been doing a lot of them, and honestly, they've been pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's been awesome. It's been so much fun to host all the streams, and you know, like Grape said, you all can figure it out after we figure it out. We are not quite sure which games will be on which stream, but that information will come out maybe even by the time we're actually airing this episode. So be on the lookout for that, because again, this is the coverage for the qualifier, and it's gonna be awesome.
Gonna be a great time. Let's go over to the headlines, as we have, again, so much to discuss. We're gonna start off with those open qualifiers of the NACLQ, which ended up a little bit different than some of us were expecting, Hawk. I mean, I think a lot of us, including myself, had certain opinions on certain teams entering the tournament, whether that was shown in our seeding or just our general thoughts about the teams. But the OQs played out maybe a little bit differently than a lot of people expected. My question to you, to kick off this show, is have your opinions changed on who you think are the 4 teams to make it into the promotion relegation tournament after this open qualifier?
And so I'll answer the actual question in a minute, but just talking about the OQs not exactly going according to plan. I mean, I was the only person that rated Native above TikTok Tony Top, because I thought that TikTok Tony Top's side of the bracket was a lot weaker than Native's. Well, Tony Top, rather, they were the team that went 5-0, and Native kind of stumbled their way to a 4-1. And whether or not my opinions have changed about the favorites for promotion relegation, not necessarily. However, I have a lot less confidence in some of the teams, if this makes sense. Like, at this point, I'm pretty confident that Tony Top, Team Fish Taco, and Maryville should be able to do it. Even though Maryville went 3-2 in the open qualifier, they're in such a good spot to be able to make it. But Native, Supernova, I have a lot less confidence in them. And honestly, some of that we'll start to get into our next question, so I won't go too far down the rabbit hole. But I really don't know anymore. But the thing is Grapes, at this point in the tournament, so few teams are actually eligible and have a realistic path to that promotion tournament unless they're winning the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, Native looked a little shaky, as you did say, although they did finish 4-1. A couple of those games, they were significantly far behind and managed to eke out some comebacks thanks to some heroic plays.
Or significantly far ahead.
Yes, they did blow a couple of leads as well. But that was their one loss. And you know, also some teams that maybe underperformed a little bit. Supernova and Team Ambition both went 4-1 in the last OQ. They both finished 3-2. Supernova finished 1-2 and had to work their way back up in a similar way that TikTok Tony Top did in the first qualifier. We're going to get to those two teams a little bit later. But I don't know. I think overall, TikTok Tony Top, of course, proving us wrong by going 5-0, defeating TFT in
Yeah.
that final match. They seem like probably the only real lock to make the tournament right now. All of their pieces definitely seem to be coming together. Levitating Snow looked a lot better this time around. Wallflower, again, just kind of doing what he has been doing this entire tournament and just going absolutely berserk on these different champions. But other than that, I mean, I'm not entirely sure. And, even though points still do become a really important factor, both for the finish here and also the finish in the first open qualifier, it not only makes me question how the teams that will make the tournament are going to do, but also just like how they will do in that tournament, like which of these teams even have a chance to get promoted. Because I'm going to be honest, Talk, I don't really know. I feel like there's like a lot of parity, and that's not necessarily a good thing here for these qualifiers.
Yeah, no, it's not necessarily a good thing for these teams. And again, I mean, like you said, Tony Top, they really feel like they're a team that is finding sort of their stride. But after that, I mean, it's going to be war, especially again for that fourth seed. And just the last thing on Tony Top as well. I mean, clearly this team, they're ramping up. A lot of teams, it feels like they might be hitting like the mid-split blues. Tony Top, after starting the first open qualifier 1 and 2, they are going crazy. Maybe it's just a Tony Top angle for Supernova, because Grapes, unless you have anything else to say, this might just be able to carry us into our next question, because Supernova, they are currently in that team in our 4th place spot in terms of points, but they find themselves in a group with Tony Top and some of the direct competition in Team Ambition. Only 2 of those teams are getting out, and also you got to get past St. Clair College as well, who we should not sleep on. So, I mean, Grapes, it is a tough road to retain that 4th spot for Supernova, and we've talked about some of the concerns for this team as we're kind of heading down the split.
Yeah, and I think that is a really weird thing to just think about as a whole. Just the fact that the points are in such weird spots, and also like a lot of the teams that did look good this time around just don't have any points. Like Rock Bottom, for instance, finishing 4-1, beating Maryville in that last round. It's like almost impossible for them to qualify at this point because of the fact that they didn't perform, they didn't play in the first event. But again, just like the weird weakness of some of these teams, and none of them really being able to pull away from the pack, and also with like Flyfam performing really well, for instance, down over in the NACL. I'm seeing less chances for teams to promote, and that is kind of the opinion that has changed the most for me. Not necessarily the teams that are going to get in, but more the teams that I think are going to be good to, maybe have a chance to be in the NACL this summer.
That's fair. I mean, look, Flyfam might be looking better, but we'll probably talk about this later. There's still a couple of teams that we're pretty doomer on, though. So,
yeah. Well, we got to get to the promotion relegation tournament first, and to do that, some of these teams in this group of Supernova and Team Ambition were some of the teams that we were, considering going in, as we can head over to our next topic here. This is a weird situation again. The OQs just kind of gave us really things that we weren't expecting necessarily, both entering the tournament and also just entering the split. Supernova and TA were definitely 2 squads that we both really thought were going to be at the top of the table, but they are now seeded 8 and 9, and one of them, assuming Tony Top, get out of this group, of course, will be out, and their split will be over just due to the way that the points will work by the end of the group stage, because they have to play against each other. So in a situation where, Tony Top does go through in Group A of this open qualifier, Hawk, who do you have, Supernova or TA?
And it's such a tough question because, again, I'm reiterating the same point I've already made. But basically, like, whoever gets out has an amazing shot at that 4th seed, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Grapes, was it whoever gets out of this group would play Native for the semifinals berth? Or no, is that not? They would meet in the semifinals against a potential Native Gaming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that.
Yeah, something like that. So if like basically if the dominoes fall correctly, you could find yourselves in a do or die match against like the other direct competition. So like this is huge for either of these teams. And Supernova, of course, they made semis last time. Team Ambition made quarters. They're the 2 teams that have been hit the hardest by roster changes as far as promotions have gone into the NACL. But we still had pretty high expectations. I mean, we were hyped about players like Kachu and Kisno as being able to really come in and fill their roles. But for whatever reason, and I mean, I, I'm we haven't seen all the games out of Supernova and Team Ambition from this past weekend, but these teams don't feel like they're clicking as much as they did. And Supernova in particular, I mean, they got pretty easily rolled over by Tony Top in the semis just a few weeks ago. And so now in the group with them, I think it's going to be a tough match. I still think I favor Supernova for as good as Sarcasm has been playing, and that might be able to create a mismatch in the jungle role in favor of Team Ambition. I think that Dragoon is still way too good, and I think Azog and Chookies are going to be able to punish what looks to be the weakest spot of Team Ambition's roster. So I favor this team to defend their fourth place spot against Native Gaming Grapes.
If you told me like before the open qualifiers, who do you favor? I would definitely say Supernova. I mean, they performed pretty admirably. I think just in general throughout. And they did. I think they finished farther than Team Ambition last time around as well. But after this OQ, you have to look at some of the results, and maybe some question marks do arise. If you look at the results from these open qualifiers, of course, both of these teams did go 3-2, but the way that these teams went 3-2 was very, very different. Team Ambition had a very respectable 3-2 opportunity. They, beat Winthrop and St. Clair, who are both teams that are in the group stage right now. They both qualified. They all beat Lotus in a very, very close game. But they also lost only to LiT and Mirage Alliance, who were the original 8 and 9 seeds. Meanwhile, when you look at Supernova, they lost to Zenigma, who is the 14th seed, and they also lost to Contingent, the 32 seed, one of the teams that we really thought had zero chance of doing anything. They almost made it out of the qualifiers here, Hawk. Not necessarily the best look for that Supernova team, and I think that overall, it's not too concerning because they are best of ones. I did get the chance to talk to RMC, who covered the Supernova games over on that team's channel.
Shout out
throughout
RMC.
the weekend, and he said that overall, like the laning and the individual skill of the team is still there. It just overall they kind of threw a couple of leads, maybe similar to how Maryville did. So I don't know how much you want to really look at that. Their last matchup against Lotus went 38 minutes because Lotus had a really early game comp. Supernova had a really late game comp, and they just had to wait until the late game to actually win. So hard to say, but when you just look at the rosters and how they performed, Supernova maybe not as confident in as I originally might have been.
So Supernova underperforming in the open qualifier, I feel like is a valid concern. However, again, it's best of ones, and it's you're playing a bunch of consecutive best of ones as well, right? Whereas the big thing for me is Team Ambition has not beaten a team that has been seeded higher than them the entire split. And I don't think it starts now. I think they are a team that is clearly very good. I think they're in the top 8. However, they got a bad group draw, and I don't see them matching up against Maryville. I don't see Zev and Pluto getting through Azog and Chookies, especially if you're saying RMC still believes that the individual prowess of these teams are here. I think Supernova's side lanes are just better. And I think in a best of 3 series, there could be moments where Sarcasm gets the mega boom game and destroys Supernova in 20 minutes. I don't know. But I don't see an avenue for Team Ambition to be able to create themselves a winning advantage. I think Supernova is slipping, and I could see them losing their top 4 spot, but I don't think it's a Team Ambition.
It's a very interesting point. I do want to shout out Kachu as well. I know this is somebody that we have talked about a little bit. Had another really solid OQ run as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Was good at champions like the Stylus. Also pulled out an Azir, which looked really good in the win against Lotus. And was willing to pull out things like Veigar and Morellian Soul as well. So, going a little bit outside of that champion pool, always a good thing. But I do think it's going to be a close match. That is definitely what I have my eyes on, both this weekend when they do play against each other for the first time, and then another potential situation where it will be them fighting for that chance to get out of Group A. But we can move on to a different group in the NACLQ as we move on to topic number 3. Group B is also really interesting. I think C and D have teams that we're pretty sure are going to get out, and some teams that we're pretty sure are not going to get out. But Group A and B are both very stacked. They both of those groups have all 4 of the semifinal teams that made it in the last qualifier just because of the way seeding ended up working. And in Group B is Maryville University, Team Fish Taco, LiT Esports. And we got to cover LiT Esports a little bit this weekend, and during that we got to sit down and talk to Munchie, their jungler, and he had this to say about Maryville.
Also, it would be really funny if something happened to Maryville and they dropped out pretty early. So that'd be nice. One less competitor for points.
You looking for your revenge there? Take
Yeah,
them down
yeah.
early.
It would be a real shame if they didn't make it out of groups.
Ooh.
Hmm.
Whoa. I'm gonna live react to the post production clip, but yeah, Munchie came in with some fighting words, and also I do want to point out, not only do these two groups have all 4 semifinal teams, they also have 6 out of 8 of the quarterfinal teams, with Native being the only exception, or I should say 6 out of the 7 that are currently playing in the tournament. So yeah,
USC
Group
didn't
A
make
and
it.
B are murder. And Group B in particular is murder if you're of the camp that Team Fish Taco, Maryville might have been the 2 best teams at the last tournament. Now, Tony Top beating Team Fish Taco might change that. However, that's neither here nor there. The point is, this is a really, really strong group. And Munchie, I mean, he's got a bone to pick. All of LiT, they want revenge on Maryville University, and rightfully so. Now, after watching LiT Grapes in the open qualifier, I don't know if it's gonna happen. The reason being is that LiT, they're a really feisty team. They love to fight. They're aggressive, high octane League of Legends, right? But against some of the top teams, they've just kind of lost really quickly, right? Like they're getting hands gapped a little bit, maybe. The other teams are just fundamentally stronger, whatever. But they've just lost really quickly. It kind of happened against Maryville. Like they had their moments in the quarterfinals,
Yeah.
but they struggled. Also happened in this open qualifier in their last 2 games. They started 3-0, and then in the big top end matches, they struggled. Now, to cope a little bit, LiT being one of that other quarterfinals team, they are the other team like Team Ambition that can play mega spoilers to the seeding of promotion relegation, to the championship points if they knock out either Team Fish Taco or Maryville. Now, Maryville, like we talked about, maybe a complete lock, but especially if they knocked out TFT, like shit gets weird. Shit gets really weird if LiT knocks them out. So it is an interesting thing to keep our eyes on. However, I will say, can they do it? I don't know.
LiT does have the quarterfinals appearance from qualifier 1, so if they did go on a run and like make finals in some really crazy situation, like they're probably in.
Yeah,
However,
yeah, for sure.
I'm not 100% sure if that is the case. By the way, isn't that crazy that Munchie predicted that he was going to knock out Maryville before
I
the
know
groups
that
even
was
got
before the
got
groups were
announced?
seeded, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do think LiT got a really rough draw though. Despite some of
It is
Maryville's
rough.
struggles in the open qualifiers, one of them was against Super Sunshine Fruit Basket Warriors, where RBM locked in Udyr and just ran over the entire game. The other one, Scary Jerry and Zyko actually struggled a little bit against Rock Boom and Rox in the bot lane, which is going to be a really interesting storyline to watch in Group D. But I still think overall Maryville's solid enough that they will be able to make it, far enough to at least like make sure that they're in that tournament.
I'd be really surprised if Maryville fell out in groups. Like 3-2 in the open qualifier, similar to Supernova. I don't think it means enough. Like I would be so surprised if they lost 2 straight best of 3s or 2 out of 3 best of 3s. That'd be very shocking to me because that's the other thing you have to keep in mind is if we're thinking that like say Team Fish Taco gets out and it's Maryville LiT 2-3, LiT theoretically has to beat Maryville twice, right?
Yep.
So like not 1 flash in the pan but 2, and that's so hard to capture.
And it's just a really tough draw for LiT just in general. Like, I think, honestly, if you put them in any of the other groups as, like, the 3 seed, which is the seed that they're in Group B, like, I actually favor them pretty heavily maybe to get out and maybe make a run. But unfortunately, just due to the way the seeding worked, they're just in this group because Maryville ended up faltering.
Yeah.
And, that's just going to be how it is, unfortunately. But we'll see if they actually can do it because, one thing we do know about LiT is that they continuously improve and are able to play as a unit pretty well for a team that's here in the qualifiers. So
yeah,
if
LiT's
they
got
did
great
scale
pieces.
enough, who knows?
They've got great pieces. I don't think there's any reason why LiT couldn't be competitive. I just do think, like, look, I'm so here for it. Munchie, if you're listening to this, like, do it. Go knock out Maryville, make the world burn. That would be amazing and so entertaining, and it like I'd be very happy to see LiT perform really well. However, if I'm gonna use my analyst hat, right, like it's so unlikely. It's improbable. However, it's not impossible.
Right. Gonna be. An interesting one to watch. Again, Maryville versus LiT will be on one of the channels, either Salty Runback, Smackside, or Alk Battery this weekend, so make sure to check that one out. Moving on to our fourth topic of the day as we transition over to NACL for the rest of this episode. It's been announced officially that Yusui has been signed by Immortals Challengers and will be taking Bolulu's spot in the NACL for their playoff run. Bolulu, of course, moving up to the LCS means that there is an open spot down there. But Yusui's just a bit of a questionable decision on paper, Hawk. I mean, he hasn't looked very good in the recent appearances that we've seen from him. Last played on Dignitas in 2021. Hasn't really been around since then. I mean, my question to you is, why was this the move by Immortals?
Yeah, Grapes, there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, if you didn't hear about this, about it being officially announced, and maybe you just heard sources, Immortals' social presence kind of lacking. I didn't know either until I actually looked at Yusui's Twitter and he had retweeted it. It only had like 60 likes. But anyway, I think that kind of goes into this because Yusui, when Graves said that, he told me, he was the one that saw it and he sent me the tweet, the rumor tweet about Yusui being signed. And I was like, who is that again? Because he hasn't played since 2021.
Yeah.
He was a pretty, definitely not the best part on an extremely mid Dignitas roster back in the day. And now after taking a year off is back in NACL. And look, this player's, from what we last saw, was not terrible or anything, but it's just a really unexpected choice and one that I think no one was really, I mean, we were hyped about oh, maybe they're signing Comp 9, the rookie. Nope. It's Yusui. And I think that's just sort of the reaction we have to this, Graves.
I do think that Comp 9, as we mentioned, would have been a really good fit on that team. I mean, they both play Vel'Koz, so it almost would have been a very seamless transition, in a way. But, I mean, Bolulu was a very, very important part of this roster. I think probably the best performer when he was in the NACL. I mean,
not probably. Bolulu was the best part of the team.
Did you see the Zoe game that he had the other day?
Yeah.
Where he just went nuts, had a quadra kill. It was disgusting. I mean,
Bolulu, he just was. That's not, you don't need a qualifying statement for that. He was the best part of this IMT roster, I think it's fair to say.
And I think obviously it's going to be hard to find a replacement this late into the season. Maybe Immortals wanted a veteran presence, which Bolulu was, and so that's maybe why they went the other route for Yusui. But I think another plausible explanation for this, Hawk, could just be the fact that nobody really wanted to hop onto this Immortals roster that they were considering. I mean, when you look at it at the end of the day, there are still a bunch of really top mid laners, on some of the NACLQ teams or maybe just around in general. But those guys want to, promote into the NACL. They have really good stuff going on their qualifier teams right now, headed potentially towards a promotion relegation tournament when you look at people like Get Back and Messages and players like that. But so I don't know if that's necessarily a situation you want to go in where you're subbing into a roster. The playoffs are going to be starting. You're already a bottom half seed, so the odds will be stacked against you for most of the tournament. I mean, if you have a bad run, who's to say that this is not just a stopgap for Immortals and they're going to go find somebody else, replace you, and you're going to have you're just going to leave a good situation for kind of a bad one at the end of the day. I don't know. I think it's just the fact that joining a roster like that is just about to enter their playoffs while you're already maybe in a better situation might not be what a lot of different players would want. And so I mean, I don't know.
There's a very good chance, right? You could be joining that roster to maybe win one, maybe two best of threes. You probably aren't making it to best of fives. Almost certainly, I would say, aren't making it to best of fives. And I mean, the fact of the matter is that Immortals is a low tier challenger team right now. And they have a low tier LCS roster. I could totally see where a lot of players would be coming from if they weren't immediately going out of their way to rush an NACL at this point in the season. And the other thing too is, Immortals, they've actually not signed any rookies the whole year, as far as the NACL team is concerned. I mean, ADD, Chad, Wixie, and Joey, also all veterans of various regions or North America. So yeah, for whatever reason, I mean, maybe INT wasn't looking. Maybe they thought Yusui's the guy. Look, I mean, my thought on this signing is Yusui's probably gonna be fine. I don't think he's gonna feed or anything. But I'm not inspired in any way. And part of it is maybe just he was kind of Look, back in 2021, I'm gonna be real with you guys. Like, I didn't watch Academy, so it was. I only really have this one split of LCS to go off of, and it was lackluster. It was, at best, it was just lackluster. So, I mean, it's just a name right now to me, and who knows? Maybe I'll come in and smurf it, but it's just always weird to me when, like, if you're bringing a player out of retirement or like out of some sort of break, they better be like a stud. You know what I mean? Like, and I think Yusui's not exactly a stud.
Yeah, I think overall, just maybe a chance for him or somebody else, maybe if they decide to go with other options to like revitalize their career in a way. So
maybe it's a stopgap until next split. You know, it's like, hey, Yusui, can you play a couple weekends for us, and we sign some crazy mid laner for summer. You know, like that's possible too. And in that case as well, I could like kind of see where they're coming from.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Definitely going to affect the way Immortals Challengers plays, and it might reflect the way that we think about how the playoffs will go. We'll get to that in a bit. But before we do that, got to finish off with our last headline of the day, and that is heading into the MVP discussion. The NACL Most Valuable Prospects Award that's given out every split. It's been won by Dokla and Busio back in 2022. I think the official definition is the player who people think is going to have the most success in LCS in the next 2 years. So not necessarily somebody who is like going to be like a great LCS player right now, but maybe has room to grow as well on top of that. So Hawk, I know it's just the regular season just ended. There's a lot of content to kind of take in, but right off the bat, I mean, do you have any potential favorites for the NACL MVP?
Yeah. I mean, like the NACL broadcast, their talent's going to be having this conversation now. So why shouldn't we, right? And I mean, it is a regular season award, and again, it's most valuable prospect, not most valuable player. So that is a really important distinction to make about this award. And again, like, it is most LCS success in 2 years. Just to add a little bit of context as well, as you said, it's already been Dokla and Busio last year. Well, they both promoted their next split. Dokla has been fantastic. Busio's been he's been fine. I don't think he's been the biggest problem on 100 Thieves, for what it's worth, but and so with all that being said, I mean, it is a big deal. And Grapes, off the bat, I mean, come on, you gotta know who I'm gonna talk about, right?
I think I do.
My boy. It's my boy. It's my guy, Young Mid. And fuck it, I'm going to throw the other big carry from Golden Guardians Challengers in the ring as well, Array. I've talked so much this split about how I think the carry play from Golden Guardians Challengers is just phenomenal. And, I mean, hell, Young had a week, right, or two in LCS. Wasn't great. I won't lie. Like, it wasn't amazing, but also wasn't horrible. So I don't know, man. Like, if Young can get better at laning, especially, I think this guy is already at most valuable prospect level. And if he starts destroying people in lane, Young could very easily find himself in the LCS soon and smurfing on kids. And Array as well. I mean, the carries on this team are just so good, Grapes.
Yeah, I think overall, when we were looking at Golden Guardians Challengers entering the season, we saw that there were pieces from that roster that we liked, but maybe weren't so sure could be the full carries of that team with Concept, Rosethorn, and Prismal. But on the other side, it kind of just relied on these rookie carries, Young and Array. They both have definitely delivered so far. My only concern is that maybe Young and Array might be a little bit too inexperienced to potentially be promoted in the next couple of splits. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up happening in some capacity.
But next 2 years, right? Like, you finish this year in NACL, you get promoted before next offseason or maybe before the year after that. Like,
right. No, I do think, though, there's a reason why a player like Busio won the award instead of somebody like Yuji in previous iterations.
Yeah,
where
that
one
is
of them
fair.
looked a little bit better, maybe, but was more raw, where the other one, on the other side, was maybe had a little bit more established success at the moment. And that kind of brings me into some of the candidates that I have in my mind. Right off the top, like, the broadcast has been mentioning very heavily the idea of Mir, the TL jungler, being promoted, has been very, very aggressive, playing a bunch of different play styles. And I think it's important to note that, like, back when he was in Korea and Oceania, his style wasn't necessarily the meta that is here in 2023. It was more like carry-oriented junglers, which can be really exciting to see potentially as we get later on into the split. But overall, TL in like 9th place makes it a little bit harder for me to like really think to myself that Mir is like the one that is like really helping this team. Of course, has been really good, but maybe want to look into other directions for myself. And for that, I'm going to go over to CLG Challengers, who just had a fantastic weekend, 2-0 Cloud9, and their mid laner Copy. I think
Copy's having a
Copy, of
great
course, was the only change to the CLG roster, and they went 8th place in summer, and they look poised to go a little bit farther this time around. He has been one of the best mid laners in the entire league. I think, maybe you can put Insanity in that conversation as well, but I would not be surprised to see Copy coming away with some of these awards. There were calls for him to be promoted into the LCS a little bit during last offseason, and I feel like those calls would not be stopped in these next couple of months as we head into this offseason.
Yeah, look, multiple times in a row at the time Cloud9 had replaced their mid laner, people brought up Copy's name, and it was going to happen again before this offseason. People were like, okay, it's got to either be Copy on C9 or Copy to somewhere else. There's no way that Copy's not playing. Well, we brought in MNS, we brought in Diplex, we brought in Gory, right? Like, okay, we got some pretty good mid laners in the LCS. Well, Copy goes over to CLG Challengers, and at this point, it feels so weird to call Copy a prospect because he's been playing at this level actually for quite a while. But
third year.
Copy has been so good this split, Grapes. Like you said, I think Copy's been a top 3 mid. I think the other names that you could throw in there are Insanity and Young. And Insanity's already played in the LCS a bit. So I wouldn't consider Insanity quite as heavily for this award. I think Copy has just been stellar. And in different ways too. While Young has had these crazy pop-off performances in some of these games, Copy has just been consistently a dominant force on the Rift, and that provides a lot of value, especially as a mid laner. Sometimes, if you have a good team, you don't need to 1v9 every game. You just got to do your job and let them do their jobs too, and Copy's done that incredibly. I mean, CLG, they have such a well-balanced roster, and I think it starts with the mid lane play. Grapes, just to throw in like a couple more names. I know Masu has been talked about, 80 carry for FlyQuest. I will say, I mean, I know I mentioned Young as a rookie. However, Masu to me feels a little too raw at this point. I don't think Masu is my vote for this split. Next split, maybe I could totally see it. But a couple other names that could be thrown in there. I think you could maybe talk about Perry from Cincinnati Fear. Perry has been stellar. I think you could talk about some more players on Dignitas Challengers as well. It just maybe depends on your definition of the award. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, like Hoon, XU, or the two young pieces on that team.
Yeah.
They are definitely responsible for a lot of that success.
Hoon's second in solo kills now behind MNS. It's been going hard. Although he did kind of got clapped by Gomsweep this past week, but
yeah, that was a bit interesting. And
yeah, the Everfrost
AoE
Cho'Gath was.
AoE looked pretty good against Dignitas.
They did. They did
and
look
I think
good.
that it's a good segue to wrap up our headline portions because we're going to talk about a lot of these NACL teams in our part 2. We got a whole playoff bracket. We're both going to fill it out. We'll see you in a bit. Hawk, it is March and it's time to get mad. NACL, the spring 2023 playoff bracket is here. The regular season has concluded, 242 games over 7 weeks. A rather impressive feat both for the players and also for everybody who got to watch all of those developmental League of Legends games. But overall, the seedings have finished off. All of the teams have qualified into the playoffs, and they will be facing off in a very, very exciting double elimination bracket. We have the round 1 matchups up here, Hawk. And what we did is we each filled out a bracket, and we're going to go over that. But first, let's talk about some of the teams that are going to be facing off against each other this weekend, because it's a pretty quick schedule, so games go by fast. But, I mean, there's a lot of interesting things to talk about here.
There are a lot of interesting things. Again, this is our own March Madness here. Look, March Madness, my favorite sporting event of the entire year, like real sporting event, right? So, NACL Madness, I'm all over it. Also, maybe PG Pod has done this in the past, but if anyone wants this bracket template, I guess I could share it on Twitter maybe, and you could fill out your own. I'm gonna be honest, I stole the PG bracket template from last year, so thank you to PG Pod.
No, we reinvented.
I repurposed. I repurposed. I recycled it. I'm saving the environment by recycling.
Exactly.
But yeah, but I might throw this up on Twitter if no one else does by the time the episode airs, and you could use this bracket and fill out your own, and we'd love to see yours. But yeah, it's gonna be mad, and there are some great matchups. So I mean, you can see here all the initial matchups and all the initial seeding, and again, it's double elimination, so you're not done if you lose in the first round. And Grapes, I think a lot of stuff shook out about how we expected it. C9 at 1, Dig at 2. However, there are a couple of unexpected ones here. I think, namely, the one that I'm looking at is Fear is the 4 seed after winning a tiebreaker over Golden Guardians Challengers, and Wildcard fell all the way to 8 in the final week.
And it could have gone way down. It could have gone down even more. I mean, they did play a tiebreaker against TLC, and they did win that. It was basically for side selection in this round 1 matchup, so not too much really in terms of stakes there. But overall, I think the interesting thing here with the way that the bracket in the regular season shook out is there were, I think, 6 teams, or the 3 seed, so 7 teams. The 3 seed to the 9 seed were basically separated by 1 game.
Yes. Yeah, it was crazy
you either had
close.
19 or 20 wins, I think.
19 or 18.
18 or 19 wins. And that was, if you had, it basically came down to like head-to-head record.
It's like Big Ten basketball for anyone that follows that. Yeah, that's what's happening here.
I believe the official way that tiebreakers were broken were first the number of wins in total in the regular season, and then after that the number of 2-0s in the regular season. So in that instance, like Fear and Wild and Golden Guardians had the same number of best of 2 wins.
I think it was head-to-head 2-0 specifically was the tiebreaker, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Or was it purely number?
It was one or the other. I'm not 100% sure.
One or the
Either
other.
way, I didn't get to watch the full broadcast live. I just watched the tiebreakers that happened afterwards, and this is how things shook up. So the way that it does end up being, though, is that like very, very small differences in like the way that people played made really big differences in how these teams are seeded. You can see right here, Wildcard plays against Team Liquid. Meanwhile, you have 100 Thieves playing against Team Liquid first. So 1 game is all the difference that it took. But in terms of interesting matchups here, there's a couple of them that I see. Of course, Wildcard Team Liquid is going to be a fun one. I think that it's hard to evaluate off of just that one tiebreaker because Wildcard just came off of playing a best of 2, and TLC did not play that entire day. So who really knows in terms of like how warmed up were Team Liquid and stuff like that. Wildcard did win pretty convincingly. But other than that, I mean, is there any other matchups that you're looking at here as being a potential exciting banger in round 1?
Yeah. The other one that I'm actually kind of got my eyes on, AOE Gold against Golden Guardians Challengers. I actually think that could low-key be a really good matchup. Now, we'll get into this in a minute when we talk about my bracket, what I think of this. But AOE, they've been streaking a little bit. And Golden Guardians, I don't want to say they've been trending downward, but they had a real tough end of the split in terms of strength of schedule. And they did pretty well. But not amazingly, which is why they find themselves at this 5 seed. Other one I'll toss into the ring as well. I think TSM CLG could be competitive. I think CLG is definitely the favorite. But I could see a world in which TSM takes a game and makes it exciting.
And I know that Immortals had some of the roster changes, but they did split a series with FlyQuest just
this past weekend. Yeah.
Now they're going to be playing up against each other again. That's something I have my eyes on. Also, it is important to note we are recording this after 100 Thieves have announced that Darshan will be their starting top laner over Sniper. Hopefully, Sniper, you are feeling better and will be back sooner rather than later. But creates another really interesting dynamic here. But other than that, of course, all the first week games are going to be happening this weekend. I think we better get into our brackets. I think the way we're going to do this, we're going to go one by one. Hawk, you can kind of start us off and figure out and show us here the road to an NACL title.
The road to a salty trophy goes like this, Grapes. You lose your stud teenage top laner and Sniper to unfortunate health issues. We hope Sniper's doing great. You bring in a big dick veteran. You've got Unforgiven in the bot lane, and you'll win the whole damn thing. I got 100 Thieves going the distance, and I have them doing it pretty convincingly, but we'll maybe get into all that later. I just want to get that out of the way. But Graves, you said looking at this first round that you were hedging your bets with the investments that we did. So, if you said a team would do really well in your portfolio, you said they do badly here. That way you're right in one or the other. Nah, yeah. I went all in. So, TSM, I said they might be able to contest CLG. Nah, TSM, they're getting out in the first 2 rounds. They're done. Team Liquid first is going to assassinate them.
You realize Neo is playing here in this bracket against that bottom lane?
It's going to happen. Team Liquid first is going to assassinate Team Liquid TSM Challengers in the first losers match. Other interesting things.
Okay.
Look, I mean, look, I'll give it like 30-70 odds.
Hey,
No, I'll give it 25-75 odds.
Upsets happen. I don't know if that's the upset that is the one that you should be banking on happening. I understand it's for your portfolio, but I think that TL First is probably the second weakest team. I mean, they did get swept by Flash this week.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think Team Liquid First is very weak. If I'm being honest with you, I don't think it's going to happen. But look, it's just like when you do your March Madness bracket, right? Like,
gotta pick the
if you
upset.
can't just pick what you think is going to happen the whole time because it's not going to happen. Like, sometimes you gotta just send it.
That's fair.
And also to be serious as well, either team's losing to TLC in this round, so it doesn't fucking matter, right? In the grand scheme of things. So just going through some of the hype matchups, I did have Team Liquid Challengers knocking off Wildcard early, as well as AoE Gold. I had them playing a close series against Golden Guardians, but ultimately falling. And I think Grape's the big narrative here for me for my first round, and then we can get into some of the later rounds, is that I think there's a pretty clear top half. You're talking about how close the 3 through 9 seeds were, and I think it's because all those teams were really good. We said 2 episodes ago, like, how many teams can win the whole thing, and I said 9. And I still believe that. I think the top 9 teams could all theoretically win the whole thing. I think there's varying degrees of strength there. But I think the gap between Immortals and everyone above them is pretty big, so it doesn't leave that much room for upsets for me.
Yeah, at least in this first round. I mean, it looks tough to try to find an upset here. I'm gonna spoil things right now. Other than, I didn't have an upset either in that first round. So that I don't think is where things get interesting. Where it does get interesting is kind of the rest of this bracket, where the seeding teams, some of the teams that we don't think are as good, start to get eliminated, and then we get the really, really top teams facing off against each other. So if you want to give us the road over as we continue out throughout the round, maybe that would be a fun thing to do.
Yeah, totally. So, again, in going with 3 through 9 being so competitive, and honestly, at this point, even 1 and 2, they're only a few games ahead of everybody else. I think I have a lot of 1 wins. I don't have a lot of sweeps going on down here. Big things to notice. Obviously, Golden Guardians Challengers. I'm a believer in them. I said they would reach top 4 in my investments. Again, I'm not hedging my bets. I think Golden Guardians is going to lose to 100 Thieves twice in the top 4 and get second place. Which, hey, like that's
second place.
That's not bad. Yeah, I am here. Look, young MVP, young second place. That's my investment right there. I also am really putting a lot in FlyQuest Challengers. FlyQuest Challengers is my 3rd place team, Grapes. And notice, Wildcard, after losing the first round of Team Liquid, finds themselves in 4th place.
Wow.
Now, I know you might be thinking.
Okay, so my questions: where's Dig? And where that's basically it. Where's Dig?
Dig is losing to Wildcard. Look, Graves, they're losing.
And
look,
C9, where's C9 get eliminated?
They're also losing to Wildcard.
We're just Wildcard is beating them all.
Okay, hear me out. All right, hear me out. Like,
I gotta give it to you.
This was like my pick a little bit. Okay, so
Okay.
Wildcard loses in the first round to Team Liquid. It's not that inspiring. It's like, ooh, Wildcard, they've really fallen off from the early split. They've lost their magic. But like a cornered animal, they are going to go berserk in the lower bracket and just fucking annihilate everybody. CLG Challengers, great team, gone. Dig Challengers, gone. C9 Challengers, gone.
Wow.
Then gets promptly swept by FlyQuest after the magic runs out. So, like, I just think this team, look, we could honestly, I think it's an interesting discussion to really debate how good this team actually is. But you cannot deny the level of variance that this team can bring to the table, and I think they could do something crazy like this. So why the hell not? I'm here for a wild card 4th place, man.
They did pick Belveth 2 straight games, and Keel made that champion look like the best champ in the entire game. So
yeah,
they're willing to pull out interesting stuff, even if it's not just the Garen and the Zac and the stuff that we saw at the beginning of the season. They're still willing to innovate just a little bit, and so maybe that is a bit of an angle here. Is there any last thoughts that you have? I mean, I'm just taking a little bit of an extra look around. Everything else looks relatively standard, I think.
Yeah, pretty normal. The other upset, I think Team Liquid Challengers against Cincinnati Fear, if this happened, would be a great series. This was the 1 5-game series, I do believe. Oh no, I had Golden Guardians going 5 games in their last 2 series actually. But this is the only 5-game series I have before semifinals and finals. Or I should say losers finals and finals. And I think this would be a great series. I do value TLC. I know they've been struggling with consistency. I think TLC, we talked about this in a recent episode. I think 2 weeks ago, was it? I think they're having an identity crisis. I think they're still having an identity crisis, but I think they have some great players. So I think this team could demonstrate some variance as well. But the big one for me is I think FlyQuest honestly has a great road grapes to the top of the bracket. Just by the way the matchups are going to work out, at least as I picked them. And I see them being a huge threat, and I know you invested in them heavily. So both the teams that we put a lot of money in, I have making the top 3.
Very well. I think overall, very interesting bracket. We'll be posting these on our socials so you guys can roast us a little bit later. But I think it's time to go into what I have cooking up here. Again, I went for things that were a little bit spicy here and there, but also tried to be a little bit realistic, but also with the expectation that, of course, there are teams that will just end up kind of making big runs and things like that, and you kind of have to choose your battles of who you think is going to really pull out on top. Overall, I have all 16 teams, going the normal ways in the first round. All the seeds 1 through 8 will win, including a 2-1 victory for Wildcard over Team Liquid Challengers. I think that Wildcard really exposed TL a little bit in that tiebreaker game. They also split a series, I believe, earlier this week as well. So that is a pretty interesting thing. I think it's going to be close. So
had they split a series earlier that day? No. They split
not
it
that
earlier
day,
in the week.
But it was
not
earlier
that day.
in the week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. There's so many games. It's hard to keep them all straight.
There's a lot of games. Basically, both teams kind of just both played well one game, and that's what happened. But I think that's probably going to happen again. Overall, I think that Wildcard will be that's gonna be a fun series. I do have Wildcard winning that one though, and I do have them taking a game off of C9 in the second round as well before going down to the lower bracket. As we head over to other stuff here, I have Dig falling to FlyQuest in the second round here. That one is just kind of me being a bit of a FlyQuest enjoyer, of course. Dignitas have actually, while still being pretty strong, have split their last 6 series. You can count that up to
honestly, which is impressive.
They are the only team to not have lost a series, which is why I do have them 2-1. But they have not 2-0'd. You can again attest to that being just regular season, already being high seed, wanting to just limit test a little bit. But I do have them losing here in the second round.
And I do want to speak to that a little bit. I think Dig has looked weaker since Tomo has been promoted. However, I do want to say I think this team has very clearly been limit testing, man. Against AoE on the last day, they were playing Blitzcrank. SkyTech was playing Rumble support. It was off the walls. There was a Pike game in there for Diamond. Yeah, that series was great. Go and do yourself a favor. That was one of the last series of the whole regular season. But I do think this team has been limit testing, which I think is why we still value them. But I just wanted to interject with that.
Yep. Heading down to the bottom end of the bracket, this is my big upset here. FlyFam going to beat Immortals here in the lower bracket. I think that FlyFam have been looking better and better. They split with Immortals, I believe, last week.
Okay.
And of course, having that substitute mid laner here for IMT going to maybe pose a bit of an issue. And I do really like the way that FlyFam has been working with Hyper. Instinct and Sword have also taken a big step up from what otherwise has been a very disappointing start to the spring split. I think the pieces are kind of coming together at the right time, and for Immortals, the pieces were coming together, and then Bolulu left, so now they're kind of falling apart again. So
that's fair.
I have them moving on. I do have them losing to Golden Guardians in the next round, though, but that is going to be my a little extra push there for a FlyFam to get them the second seed potentially in that promotion relegation tournament.
So some interesting takes here. I want to talk about a couple of these, and then I can let you tell me who's gonna win the whole thing.
Yeah.
I do think if it is FlyFam Immortals in that game in that series, which I think it will be, I actually think that will be a great series. So I even though I didn't pick the upset, I think that will be a great series. I do agree with you, Grapes. I'm excited to watch that one. And I'm excited for FlyFam. I definitely think Golden Guardians gets past. And then the other thing, I wanted to talk about C9 a little bit because C9 has been a really interesting team for me. Obviously, you've got them running their way all the way to top 2. You had them doing what I had Golden Guardians doing. But my thing with C9, I think C9 is actually, I think they have demonstrated a lot of weakness this split, Grapes. And the reason I say that is even though they're 23-7 to end their regular season and they're the number 1 seed, look, they have 2-0'd almost every single team that is worse than them. However, every single time Cloud9 has played a top team, they have split. Pretty much every single time Cloud9 has played a top team, they have split the series. And I think the reason for that is I think Cloud9 is used to hands gapping everyone. I don't think they're used to being tested. And in fact, when teams have been able to push them to their limit, they've been shown to break. Wildcard did it, and I believe they 2-0'd Cloud9. A few other teams have
Cloud9 and who is it? CLG just 2-0'd Cloud9 as well this week.
Yeah, and so and they've split a couple other series too. So I actually think that Cloud9 is. I feel hesitant to invest in them because I think they're going to hands gap a lot of the worst teams, but I think good teams they're not a tree. They don't bend very well, Grapes.
It's a fair point. I think it's also a fair point to mention that just like they have 3 of the best lanes in the entire league. They have Fake
You
God,
can't argue with raw skills, so
yeah. Fake God has been incredible.
That.
Lost in Zazel, like you could slot them into LCS, they'd probably be in the middle of the pack. We saw Diplex, on C9 look pretty good. And Tomio is just basically getting to do whatever he wants because every single time that C9 get onto the Rift, like all of their lanes basically have prio and are able to just really, really take over. So I think
can't argue with individual skill for sure.
Yeah, that combined with also the fact that these are players with veteran LCS experience, I do think that favors them in a situation like this when they're going into best of series. They're prepping for each game and things like that. That is why I have them defeating Wildcard up here in the top round. I think they're going to be able to game plan for some of the strategies that they have. And that leads me down to the bottom end of this side of the bracket where I do have Wildcard going down and losing to TSM Challengers. Now, this is a series that already happened a little bit earlier in the split. TSM 2-0'd Wildcard. And I think that series really posed and exposed Wildcard a bit earlier than some other teams really were able to figure them out. But we've seen them struggle a little bit throughout these past couple of weeks. They have had a relatively slow end to the season. And I think a lot of that is just kind of teams figuring them out a little bit. The Wildcard game plan is to, fight around objectives and just have champions that team fight better, whether it's Saligo's Oriana, Moose Haters Garen, finding flanks is always a really important thing. But when teams have been able to take advantage of them and know the strategies coming in, TSM
was one of those teams,
yeah, and they really took them out pretty easily. And I think that going into these best of series in the playoffs where you're only doing game prep for one team a week, it's going to allow for teams to be a little bit more ready for wildcard and things, and a player like Moose Hater, for instance, when he's not on the Garen or the Fiora or something like that, he's playing Malphite and missing ultimates on everybody. So it's not it seems like they are able to whip out different strategies, but it's kind of like what you were saying a couple of episodes ago, where they can break the meta, but they can't play the meta. And I think that is actually going to hurt them here. And I have them dropping a little bit earlier than maybe some other people were expecting them to.
It's a very valid concern. I'm just banking on the caged animal strat. Look, I was coping so hard. I had them going through 3 of the best teams in the league. I had them going through CLG, C9, and Dig in the losers bracket. And I don't think it's going to happen. But it would be crazy if it did, which is why I picked it. Grapes, while you were talking also, I noticed that you picked Golden Guardians to win a best of 5 by only winning 2 games. So what's your series score for Golden Guardians against TSM? I put a 3 here. As a
3-1. All
right, cool.
Yeah, that's pretty standard. But now we can get into the rest of this bracket. Historically, as we have been in this proving ground / 16-team double elim bracket for a couple of years, it's always been a pretty interesting thing that the 2 seed of the academy teams, of the challengers teams, will lose very early on. And that team is Dignitas here in this situation. I do have them, of course, losing to FlyQuest, and then I have them here dropping to CLG Challengers after they 2-1 Team Liquid. These series are going to be really good, but overall, I think that CLG has has looked really, really good as of late. That 2-0 over C9 has convinced me a little bit on them. I think all the pieces working together really well. Jenkins had a great week, popping off on like a Rumble, which was like a big throwback to when he used to play back in solo queue in like season 6. And overall, I think this team is going to perform really well. I have him beating Dig, and spoilers, I have him making a run all the way to the finals. I think that this team could be one of those picks. Of course, we did mention how we think that maybe any of these like top 9 teams can do it. CLG seems like they're in a good position to do so. And I mentioned Copy in my MVP discussion a little bit earlier. He's going to have a great tournament, run all the way through, going to 3-1 Fear. They're going to 3-1 FlyQuest here in this matchup, which would be pretty interesting. And they will play up against 100 Thieves, in which will be a pretty cool one for third place. But CLG, I think, are going to come out on top. However, I do think that C9 just run through the rest of the bracket. They will sweep CLG, whose magic will run out in the finals and become our NACL champions.
Wow, we are very divided on Cloud9 because again, I struggle to be sold on them, and I know it's crazy because they are on paper the best team. I do want to talk about CLG. Because if I didn't have my crazy wild card run happening, it would be a CLG that does it. I would have CLG running through C9 and Dignitas. And instead of getting promptly 3-0'd by FlyQuest when the magic runs out, I think they would play a phenomenal 5-game series against them. And whichever one of those teams wins, that would be who finishes in 3rd or 4th place. And it would be a banger. So I agree. I'm actually really high on CLG. I think they could be like, so this series right here, this would happen for me too, Grapes, but just it would be I didn't do that because the fucking wildcard memes, right? But I do think CLG is a team that everyone should have their eyes on. I think they kind of they started really hot, they hit a mid-split lull, and it feels like they're on the up again. And so I would be on the lookout for them. Wow, Cloud9 running the bracket. I am amazed by that. I could totally see having Cloud9 winning the whole thing, but running the bracket, really?
I don't know. I feel like overall in these best of series, they will have kind of an edge over different people. It's not going to be a clean one. I have them, going 2-1 to Wildcard, 2-1 to Fear, 3-1 to 100 Thieves, and then they will just, I don't know, somehow.
Hey, that's pretty clean, playing a 3-1 and a 3-0 in best of 5s. Like, it's pretty.
I don't know. I do think
nice.
that I'm a big fan of that bot lane. I think that they, in this matchup specifically against 100 Thieves, like Lost and Zazel, would probably just be able to handle Unforgiven a little bit, and that just means the rest of the map is not as strong. And I think that not handle in terms of like necessarily like beat, but Lost and Zazel together I think have been a better like bot lane pairing than Unforgiven and Destiny, even though Unforgiven might be the better player. And so in that situation, bot lane relatively even, and then I think overall top side of the map for C9 is better than the top side of the map for 100 Thieves in terms of just people who are able to take over and carry the game.
It's fair enough. Like, I definitely see where you're coming from. My counterpoint on 100 Thieves, and this is the reason I have them winning, is because even if you could skill check 100 Thieves in a game or two, if you can't skill check 100 Thieves and you go to team fights, like, who the fuck is out team fighting Unforgiven, man? Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, that's why I have them winning the whole thing, especially now that you have Darshan on the top lane. Like, again, we've talked about Sniper a little bit on the show, how he's been pretty good, but maybe not amazing, and in fact has actually had some pretty bad games, as well as some pretty good games. I see Darshan slotting in and being a rock in the top lane for this team. And again, like, now you've got a bunch of veterans with like a young jungler and a superstar AD carry, right? So as long as you're young, it's like, hey guys, like, let's have all of our great lanes, make sure a young jungler doesn't int. He can bridge us to the mid game. And then you put Unforgiven on Zeri, he gets the 3 items, and like, I don't think you're losing. I think you win every game that Unforgiven hits 3 items on Zeri. Like, I don't know. I mean, 100 Thieves has been mortal. They were 2-0'd by Fly last week.
They went 2-2 this week.
Yeah, so
they split with TL and they split with Fear.
So they're definitely mortal. I think there's ways to beat 100 Thieves for sure. I feel like this is a team that's going to keep ramping up, and part of it might be Unforgiven, how well he plays, I think factors in. But yeah, I think actually we're pretty in agreement on who we think the top teams are, with the exception of Golden Guardians. You have them losing depressingly early to FlyQuest.
That was
but
one I was really sad about because it's like it's
I know.
these are two teams that we've been hyping up for all year.
I thought
They
you were
have
hedging
not
your
been in
bets,
that
Grapes. Why didn't you
situation.
have Golden Guardians win here? Like, what's up with that?
I was hedging mostly with Dig and EG because I have them dropping early as well.
Oh yeah, I had EG getting out early too. I think I had them going 0-2-0-2 if I'm not mistaken. I could look back at my bracket real quick. Yep, look at that. 0-2-0-2 for EG. I think this series will not be as close as the seedings will imply. I don't know. That's probably not a hot take, but I think AOE looks really good right now. Grapes, you did mention that the rumors are that King is coming back soon. Trademark.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Mobility was
But,
kind of like alluding to it a little bit in the interview that he had, but it's hard to tell. I don't know when exactly, but even
Yeah.
if it is like in the playoff run,
Is King
it's
gonna
be
save
hard
you
to tell.
though? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, he could. He's definitely an upgrade,
He could.
but I don't know if it's that big, especially this late into the season when a lot of teams have already had a ton of reps together. So
Yeah.
I don't have that necessarily affecting whether he's in or not.
Yeah, that is more than fair. I mean, clearly I went for a little bit more of a mega cope bracket, but I do think by and large, like clearly, if we had to chalk up the teams we're looking at here, we're in agreement about CLG, 100 Thieves, FlyQuest, and Golden Guardians to some extent. You have C9 and Fear a little higher, and then I have the mega cope wild card run. But other than that, I mean, like it feels like we have a pretty clear top cut here that we are looking at to pop off. So this is in before Dignitas wins the whole thing and makes us look like a bunch of haters.
Hey, then my investment in the Salt Street bets
of course.
worked out. But fun segment.
They
I
have to
think
don't they
overall.
have to win like the whole thing or make finals for
They
you
need like
to
like top 3 or
they
something.
need to like
make
yeah,
something.
top 3 for you to get money for it. You might have dug yourself a little bit of a hole on this one. It's so competitive.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that we have to think about now is that just it gets so competitive, especially when we enter the second round and beyond. But we will be able to catch the first round this weekend. I think also the losers bracket of the first round are going to start also be played on Monday and Tuesday. So it's just going to be like 5 straight days of NACL. But we still have a lot of time to figure all of that out. But overall, good segment. I enjoyed going over this. Hopefully one of us will have a really good run. And again, if you want to try to fill this bracket out, it should hopefully be available in some capacity either from us or from somebody else.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, if by the time the episode has aired, there's not already a bracket out there in the Twitter sphere, I will definitely, on the Salty Runback Twitter, post it. Maybe I'll post it on @HawkCast too. You should follow me on Twitter. In all seriousness, though, I'll definitely make sure to tweet this out so everyone can fill it out. Because let us know your brackets. I know we say like let us know a lot of the time, but like guys, can we make like a tournament challenge group? But instead of for NCAA basketball, it's for March NACL Madness. Like that would be fun. I want to see everyone's brackets. I want we always tell you all to take it with a grain of salt, but I want to take yours with a grain of salt because Wild Card is gonna reach 3rd place or 4th place.
We both have very different opinions on that. I think it really could go either way. But that's going to do it for our show.
No, that's a very diplomatic answer. It could go either way.
It could. I think it legitimately could for any of these teams.
Dude, the cornered animal strat. I'm telling you, it's gonna happen. That is the cope.
Yeah. If you want to see who Wildcard could potentially be facing off against in that promotion relegation tournament, you can watch the North American Challengers League qualifiers this weekend, both on twitch.tv/saltyrunback, Alk Battery, and Smackside. We'll have the full schedule out on our socials at some point soon. But ideally, all of those games will be streamed by us, by a lot of our friends as well, as we try to get as many people opportunity as possible, and just a lot of extra content that's going to be coming your way in these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, guys, again, it's heating up. I mean, this is crunch time of the season. We are in the thick of it. Teams are about to start dropping permanently until summer split starts. But they're going to drop permanently for spring. And some of these provisional teams, too, don't forget, they could be hurtling towards a relegation as well. They could drop permanently. So it's at that time of the year, and it's gonna be damn exciting. I am so ready for it. But Grapes, unless you have anything else, follow us on all of our social media at Salty Runback Pod, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, and Twitch is where our podcast episodes can be found. Full episodes are available there. Also on Twitter at Salty Runback Pod. You can shoot us an email at saltyrunbackpod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Let us know what you want to see as a headline, a part 2, or anything in between. Let us know your thoughts on the bracket. Let us know your brackets. Again, that will be out there somewhere by Wednesday night. Be sure to fill it out. Send it to us. Let us flame you this time. We've been flamed plenty. Come on, let us turn the tables on you. But at the end of the day, you can take what we're saying with a grain of salt. I've been Hawk. That's been Grapes. Have a good night, everyone.